Hey guys, my name is Kayla. If you have never been to my channel before, welcome. And if you have been to my channel before, welcome back. Thank you so much for clicking on another video. So today we are going to continue on with my moving series and go over some tips on what to do when you are planning to not only move, but move to a new state. Since COVID happened, moving rates have gone up. A lot of people living in bigger cities have left the big cities, gone to more rural states or even states like Texas and or Florida, because it's just not worth paying those crazy city bills like New York, when the cities are just not the same anymore. They're not the same. Me personally, I still live in Texas, but I am moving to the Midwest literally next week. So I have a little bit of experience when it comes to moving states. These are some tips that I kind of wish I knew when I was first moving from Florida to Texas, but now I do feel pretty equipped now that I'm moving to another state again. If you have never gotten an apartment before, this video is for you. And if you've never moved states before, this video is definitely for you. So go ahead, grab a little drink, grab a snack, grab a notebook, because we're gonna learn today, okay? We're gonna take some notes and we're gonna get educated. I am splitting this video up into two segments. So the first segment is called Money Baby, because it is going to be all of the tips involving budgeting, things to look for like fees, so on and so forth. And then the second segment is going to be called Research Baby, because when you're moving to a new state, especially one that you have never been to before, never lived in as an adult before, there is a lot of research that comes into play. So let's start with the money portion. Tip numero uno is know your budget. There are a lot of things that you need to think about if you want to move states, if you are planning to move states. This is honestly just as important if you're staying in the same state. There are a lot of costs that come into moving, such as the moving van, such as any lease, agreements that you have to pay off, any last minute fees that you have to pay off with your last lease, the upcoming lease, security deposit, renter's insurance, so on and so forth. There are a lot of fees that come into moving. And then getting more into the nitty gritty, are you going to hire movers? Are you going to move yourself with just your friends? Are you going to rent a U-Haul? Are you going to rent a driver? These are all expenses that you need to think about and that you need to budget for. So know what you're getting yourself into so that you don't, fall in the deep end. Also, I always say that you should have about 3 times what you are expecting to pay saved up and ready to go before you even move. Something to remember is that most apartments, when you are applying to live there, want to see that you are making either 2 times the rent or 3 times the rent. Most of them are 3 times the rent, just as like a safety cushion. They want to make sure that you're going to be able to even afford living there on top of your additional bills. So it's just very, very important to have not only money saved up, but also the income necessary to get approved for an apartment. That is something else that could spike up your security deposit, is if you are not making the right income to be living there. And that's gonna put you into it's gonna basically just dip into your savings. So again, good to save up money before moving, and also just in general with anything, obviously don't live somewhere that is going to eat up half of your paycheck each month. It's just not smart. So definitely think about these things when you are budgeting for your move. Also, piggybacking off of that, renter's insurance. Renter's insurance is mandatory no matter where you move, no matter what apartment complex you're moving to. This is something that is basically going to tell the apartment that you're moving to that you do have coverage in case anything happens, in your property while you're living there, such as injuries, such as any other type of like disastrous occurrence. God forbid, but you need renter's insurance. And renter's insurance will change depending on the state you live in. I remember when I was moving from Florida to Texas, it was relatively inexpensive. But I recently found out moving from Texas to the Midwest, it's actually more expensive, and it's very, very interesting. The insurance agent even admitted to me when she moved from California to the Midwest that it was more expensive, which is crazy to think about because I would think it would be more expensive in California, but I know that a lot of different factors play into renter's insurance, such as, what kind of weather disasters happen in that state, what kind of weird occurrences happen in that state. Is there hurricanes? Is there tornadoes? Is there flooding? Are there fires? These are all things that add into your renter's insurance that you need to know about, especially if you are moving to a new state. It's very important to understand what kind of money you're going to be spending when you are renting a property. Tip number 2. It is very important to know if the state you're moving to is going to have state income tax or any other taxes that you may not be used to. When I moved from Florida to Texas, I was very fortunate to not have to deal with any changes with that. Both Florida and Texas are states that have 0 state income tax. I do have to pay federal taxes like anywhere else. But now that I'm moving to a state in the Midwest, I actually am moving to a state with state income tax. So if you are moving to a state with state income tax, that is going to affect your paychecks, whether they're bi-weekly, whether they're weekly, whether they're monthly, whatever your payment situation is, it will get affected if you are moving to a state with state income tax. So this is something to take into consideration when you are creating that initial budget for when you are moving, and when you are looking up apartments in your budget, you need to take this into consideration. One of the main websites that I used when I was calculating new take-home paychecks is smartasset.com. I love this website because you can get on it. It has a list of all the states in the United States. You click on the state that you are moving to or that you currently live. You can use this tool, where you live right now. Basically, what this website does is asks you a series of questions. Do you get paid bi-weekly? Do you get paid monthly? What is your salary, your yearly salary? And what it does is it calculates what your take-home checks are going to look like after all taxes. So after federal taxes, after state income taxes, so on and so forth. I love this website. It honestly helped me tremendously when I was budgeting for my current move, and I know it will definitely benefit you if you are looking to move as well. All right, my third tip is ask a lot of questions when it comes to apartment hunting. Listen, guys, this was a mistake I made when I moved into my first apartment. I don't think I asked enough questions. I don't think I fully understood all of the fees that can go into having or occupying a rental property, apartment, whatever it is that you are getting into. You need to ask, what are the utilities that you guys cover? What are the utilities that I have to cover? If you have a pet, how much is the monthly pet rent going to be? How much is the non-refundable pet deposit going to be? What other fees am I going to be expected to pay? A lot of apartments, especially in the cities, will have valet trash, and it's not an option. You got to pay for that, whether you use it or not. You might also have to pay for your parking spot or a parking, or what is it called? A carport, or even like a garage. Those are all options. If you want a storage unit, you will probably have to pay a fee for that as well, unless it comes included in the apartment, which is a question to ask. Also ask about 24-7 maintenance. Is the maintenance on site? Do they have to get called to come to site? These are all very, very important questions to ask. Also, this is something I never thought about before until my current move. If you are moving to a state that gets seasons such as winter, which includes snow, do they cover snow removal costs? This was something that I genuinely didn't think about until I started apartment hunting, and I noticed that it was a utility included in some of the properties that I was looking at, and I genuinely was like, whoa. If I were renting a townhouse or like a house in general, they probably wouldn't cover snow removal, and that would probably be a cost that I would have to pay for. So that's also something to think about. If you are moving from a state that doesn't get snow and you're not used to it, and you're moving to a state that does get snow, definitely ask about snow removal costs. So again, ask a lot of questions, have a list ready to go, and don't be embarrassed, honestly. And if you get any type of rude people answering your questions, that is definitely a red flag to keep it moving and find somewhere else to live. Alrighty guys, let's get into the research that is necessary to conduct when you are preparing for a big move, especially to a different state. So tip number 4, think about the demographics of the state and or city that you are about to move to. And I was moving from when I was younger, when I was moving from California to Florida, I was in middle school. We were moving to a place in Florida that was primarily Caucasian. That was something I was not used to as a child. I was very used to living in a very diverse neighborhood. So when we made that move, I experienced an insane amount of culture shock. I was just not used to it, and it was genuinely traumatizing as a 12, 13-year-old. Now, when I moved from Florida to Texas, I didn't really experience as much of a culture shock because I did go to college in Southern Florida, which is very, very, very diverse. And Houston, Texas is equally as diverse. So I really didn't experience much of a difference there, nor did I experience much of a culture shock there. These are things to think about when you are moving to a new state. Also, because everywhere is different, and this little mini tip is going to play into the rest of the tips that I'm going to tell you, I would recommend, even though I didn't do this myself, I would recommend that you visit the place that you are thinking about moving to, just to get a feel of the culture, get a feel for the people, get a feel for the environment. I definitely recommend it. My situation's a little bit different. I have had to make moves, very abrupt moves, for the company that I work for, and I just chose not to visit the cities that I have been asked to move to. When I got asked to move to Houston, I was genuinely like, okay, let's do it. And I did everything online. I got a real estate agent to help me. It was a whole thing. I did not come to Houston before I moved here. And with the new state I am moving to, I have never been there in my entire life, but I kind of went around the process the same way as when I moved to Houston. I definitely wouldn't recommend that. It worked for me. I'm just the type of person that can do that, where I don't have to go see it because, I'm moving there for work. It's not like, it's work. It's different. But for you guys, if you are choosing to move somewhere, definitely check it out before you move, and it just gives you a better idea of what you're getting yourself into. And it'll make apartment hunting way easier. If you're gonna book a flight to go somewhere for 2 to 3 days, have a list of apartments booked, ready to go check out, so that you get the luxury of actually seeing the properties before signing any leases. Tip number 5. I have always been a research junkie. Whenever it comes to doing anything new or going anywhere new, I research the shit out of whatever it is that I am about to do or wherever I'm about to go. So When it comes to moving, especially if you know you don't have time to visit the place, research the shit out of dangerous neighborhoods to live in and safe/desirable neighborhoods to live in. I did this immensely when I moved to Houston. It was a big city. I was moving here by myself at first before my boyfriend joined me. And I was like, I don't want to accidentally choose an apartment complex that's like in an undesirable place or like a boring place, you know, things of that nature. So it's very important to take the time, especially if you aren't going to visit the place, to research crime and overall what the more desirable places are to live in whatever area you're about to move to. I have a few websites that I use in my current search and that I used when I was moving to Houston. The first one was areavibes.com. They're really, really good about giving you very honest feedback on which neighborhoods are the more desirable ones and which ones have a little bit more crime going on in them. The second one was neighborhoodscout.com. You can type in the exact zip code that you are moving to and get a feel of the exact crimes that have occurred there in the past week, in the past month, so on and so forth. It can also give you like a statewide like map with color coding to show you where the more dangerous places are, where the lesser dangerous places are, things of that nature. The last one is cityprotect.com. That one is also really good when it comes to seeing what has happened there in the past 7 days, what has happened there in the past month, so on and so forth. And it gives you exact data on like what exactly happened. Like it'll label the crime as like assault, theft, you know, other crimes that I'm not going to go into, but it'll tell you exactly what happened so you can get a feel of what that neighborhood is like, especially on a weekly basis. Tip number 6. Research the weather patterns and the overall climate of wherever you're moving. So I've always lived in very sunshiny states that don't get all 4 seasons, states that you just never have to deal with snow. I am about to move to a state that gets snow. So I'm gonna have to buy a winter wardrobe, that's all I gotta say. But this is also just very important for your safety as well. You need to understand, you know, what kind of natural disasters happen wherever it is that I'm going to move. Houston and Florida had very similar natural disasters, such as hurricanes, such as flooding, such as sporadic rain, such as humidity. That's not a natural disaster. These are all things to think about when it comes to moving anywhere. And especially if you're moving from somewhere where you really didn't need a winter wardrobe, that's something you're gonna have to think about. It's something that you're probably gonna have to budget for and something to prepare for. That is also why it is common for people to move in the summer anywhere, because it's just easier. You just know what the temperature is probably going to be like. You're probably not going to run into any like snowstorms or anything of that nature. That's also what spikes up the prices for wherever you are moving. So these are just all things to keep in mind when you are moving to a new state. The last tip I have for you guys, especially if you drive, especially if you are moving to a city that has non-existent public transportation, which is most cities, if we're going to be completely honest, where you have to have a car. What are the traffic patterns? What to expect? This is also something very important to look at when you are apartment hunting. This is why a lot of people want to live close to where they're going to work. I know a lot of people work at home nowadays. Must be nice. But there are a good amount of us that still have to drive to work and make it to work at a certain time. So you got to understand the traffic patterns. If you're moving from a state like Idaho to like Miami, Florida, you're gonna have a rude awakening, honey. You're gonna have a rude awakening. So these are just things to think about and prep for mentally when you are getting ready to leave your current state for another state. Alrighty, guys. Those were all of my tips when it comes to moving to new states. I'm going to be doing a apartment tour of my current apartment because I'm leaving in a week. So I will let you guys see where I have been living for the past year because I am booking it out of here. You know how that goes. But other than that, that concludes this video. If you have any questions for me at all, please let me know down below or ask me on Instagram. And subscribe if you have not already. Hit that notification bell so you can see the rest of my moving series, which will be coming as the weeks go on. But other than that, that's everything from me. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day and a wonderful, wonderful week. And I hope to see you in the next one. We are gonna go on to our second episode of my moving series. Selene, stop fucking with the door. Thanks. I wish my bangs would grow out already. I'm like so over them. Maybe I need to take more biotin. Yes, sir.